Hello, everyone. Welcome to Magic Carpet Life, your weekly wonder trip into the infinite discovery of who you are. I'm your host and guide, Tiffany Josephs, and I am here to romance the world to a higher love. Why are you here? Have you thought about it? Have you put it into words? Have you shouted it from the rooftops? Well, this is your time. The world has never been more ready to receive your unique magic. And you can think of me as your cosmic cheerleader on your path to discovering just how true that is. So thanks for being here, and let's get started. We are back on my big blue couch with another amazing, magnificent guest, Dr. Sarabeth Berk.
Thanks, Tiffany.
I asked her because she's, one of my Wonder Woman friends, and I asked you before we started recording, can I call you doctor? I mean,
Yeah.
You're legitimately a doctor, and a doctorate, you got your doctorate in what specifically?
My doctorate's in curriculum studies and teaching.
Okay, yes. So we are going to introduce you as Dr. Sarabeth Berk, and I promise you I won't call you doctor any other time. And here's what you're up to. I'm going to read this for everybody listening so they can get a picture of who you are, why you're here, why you're on the big blue couch today. And here we go. Ready?
Okay. Yeah, ready.
Dr. Sarabeth Berk is an artist, designer, educator, researcher with a passion for innovation strategy, systems thinking, and human-centered design. She seeks to inspire people to bring ideas to life. Like GE. Do you remember that commercial in the 80s?
Oh, totally.
We bring good things to life. That was they should have had me sing that song, but I was only like 7 when it came out. She's a hybrid professional, or rather a boundary crosser, who is talented at connecting the disconnected. And she sees life as one big design challenge. Currently, she's the director of a new initiative at the University of Colorado Boulder. The intention of this initiative is to engage and expose all stakeholders to entrepreneurial and innovative experiences on or off campus. This work is under the Research and Innovation Office there on campus, and it allows you to be the ultimate connector of dots, which you love.
I couldn't say it better. That was completely a great description. Thanks for that intro.
You are so welcome. I actually, copied and pasted from your very own website.
Where did you get all that from? That was great. Yeah.
So you and I were sitting down for brunch, which is like our preferred means of gathering. We love doing brunch together. And we were talking a little bit about this zone of genius.
Yeah.
And I get lit up about talking about genius because it's one of the energetics I work with Magic Carpet Life.
Of course.
Now, my version of what genius is, and yours, given the fact that you look very scholarly and
Right.
with intense research with this, could be a little bit different. So I want to, in this conversation, look at the soul part, the magic of genius and what that is, from even maybe an esoteric place, and the mechanics of it, the work that you've done, and the things, the way that you poured in your work into this zone of genius.
Yeah, we have so much to dig into together because we're approaching the same idea, but from really different places. So I'm excited to hear what you're going to talk about and how I can complement that.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start then with hybridity.
Sure.
Is that a word?
That's the
Every
word I
time I'm
use.
with you, I say words slowly because I'm like, is that a real word? And you know what's funny in this
Yeah.
scholarly community? It probably is a word.
Absolutely.
I just add idity after a word, or, you know, it's like, we were saying provocateur.
Oh, the great word.
I'm like, okay, yeah.
You'll be a scholar any day now.
I just need a fast track, and I have to go through the thousands of hours of
An
dissertations.
honorary doctorate. We'll get you.
There you go. Famous people do that, and if they
Maya
graduate.
Angelou has like 60. Yeah.
Well, she deserves that. Okay.
Totally.
I am
A few more years. You'll
not
get
on
there.
the same platform. Okay. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank
Keep
you.
spreading your work.
We all have our own version
Totally.
of that. So, hybrid professional, hybrid identities. How can we move into this? Maybe just you sharing how you got involved in this. Was it just you're researching, you're moving, you're obviously in this work, and then it's like, oh, this is happening?
Yeah, so let me maybe start a little bit with my story. And I think, kind of like any good story, it started with a crisis and then led to an awakening.
Okay, perfect.
I was a student for most of my life. I mean, I was a really good academic. I have multiple degrees. I mean, education is sort of my bag. And I was heading on a path of becoming, well, I was an art teacher. And that really became my identity, but I knew I could do so much more. And I felt locked in. I wanted to lead and have impact, but this box, this title, this structure was really confining me. And I didn't know how to break out and get to the next step of my journey. So on one hand, I was like, I can either apply for new jobs, but how do I get other employers or people to see me outside of being this art teacher? Or maybe I need to go back to school and get more credentials. So that was sort of this point in time when I really started examining who I am. And when I started applying to jobs, I realized I need to showcase to these jobs what I think my true professions are. So at that point in time, it was being an artist and being a teacher and being a designer. And literally on the cover letters I was writing, I would say, hi, I'm Sarabeth Berk. I consider myself to be this artist slash teacher slash designer. And let me tell you why those matter to me and how they matter to this position I'm applying to. So that really helped me open up and explore and reveal to these jobs how I'm a different kind of candidate. And lo and behold, that actually did get me some job offers in directions outside of teaching. But I actually decided to go back and get my degree to study, and I felt the credentials were going to get me further faster.
Right.
So that was the point when I was exposed to deep research and how do you take ideas and expand them and support them. And the question that kept coming up for me again and again is, who am I? What does it mean to be a teacher? And if I am doing all this self-questioning, are other people questioning that too? And that became the heart of my big research project. I went out and started asking people, well, what does it mean to be a teacher? And what else are you doing besides teaching in the classroom? Because that's kind of the term of being a teacher, but that's not what you're doing all the time. You're counseling students, you're coaching, you're doing administrative work, you're creating content, you're doing all these things, and every teacher looks different. I mean, you can think of all the people that have taught you, they're not the same, even though they're doing the same job. And this was so curious and really revealing for me because I was like, I'm noticing people have a variety of professional identities. Like, just pausing on that term right there, identity is loaded because one, we're constantly shifting and changing. Our identities are fluid. So the person you are today is not going to be the person you are 10 years from now.
Yes, I love that you say that.
Oh my gosh.
And fluidity.
Just that awareness is so important. And then identity has all kinds of main categories of your race, your class, your gender, your socioeconomic status, your ability. And I really felt I needed to hone in just on my professional side. That was what was coming up for me and calling my attention, because we could sit here all day and talk about our feminine identity or being a mother, but when do we really dive into our professional selves? And this idea too that you can have multiple kinds of professional identity was like an aha. And I don't think we're talking about that as a culture. I don't think people are recognizing that's permissible. When I sit down and have coffee meetings with people, because my job is really about networking and understanding how people connect, time after time, they tell me about their pathway and the multiple things they're doing, and no one talks about multiple professional identities. The step that I'm sort of taking beyond this is not just listing out all the things you do, the artist, the teacher, the researcher, but what happens when you're crossing those over? So you're never actually doing them in isolation. Like, yes, sometimes I might be more of the researcher than the designer, but more often I'm being a researcher designer simultaneously because they're informing and influencing, and it's just part of who I am and how I approach things. That's the hybrid. The hybrid is the intersection and crossing over, which actually brings this whole set of genius to your work, this whole power of you're doing things in ways that nobody else is doing because your unique set of professional identities has an integration that mine is different. And if everyone can start recognizing and talking about that and differentiating themselves, we have a really different way of looking at how people are working and what value they're bringing to their clients, to their customers, to their employers, to society.
Yes.
I think it's a conversation that I'm just ready to open up.
Well, you are opening it up. We sat in my home a couple of months ago, and we had a very diverse group of women
Yeah.
at the table, and it was like Pandora's box. I mean, you just
Right.
brought out
Yeah.
these ideas and this question, this
Yeah.
thesis, and there were artists there were healers there, and we were just kind of unlocking this together. And I think the power of that question, well, we all go through this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who am I?
Who am I?
I am always in an existential crisis.
I think we all
Okay.
are.
This is never ending.
Yeah.
I wake up, I could go to bed and feel like, oh, yes, I feel home.
Right.
To me, it's the energy of I feel home
Yeah.
in myself. And then I wake up and I'm like, what am
Yeah.
I
What
doing in
happened?
this world? What's happening?
Yeah.
And it's good because it's diversity, of our inner world. We're constantly working
New
with that question.
revelations. Yeah.
Yeah. But to me, I want to talk about the
Sure.
magic of the slash.
Absolutely.
You, artist slash designer slash educator slash researcher, you have a methodology that you have. I mean, there's Venn diagrams involved. There's
Right.
It's really legit.
Yeah.
And how can I work and begin to identify what my intersectionalities are?
That's a great question. I love that you use the word intersectionalities because that is a very scholarly word.
Yay! I told you I'm working this.
And it's a fancy word, but it hits the core of this work are the intersections. So, I mean, step one of this work is awareness, right? That if you have a title, you are more than your title. So right now my title is Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. What the heck does that mean? I mean, titles are just these obscure ways of labeling ourselves.
Yeah.
So you actually have to, one, have that question of, okay, what is it that I'm doing? Then two, starting to identify. So creating lists of what are the core things you feel you're doing on a daily basis that are most representative and most important to you and feel like your true essence in your work. So for me, it's the artist and the researcher and designer. But I'll be honest, those words shift from time to time. Sometimes I'm like, okay, right now I'm more of the innovator. I want to reset that one. But overall, these feel like the ones I'm tapping into the most. And we do have core, sort of these primary identities, and then there's the secondary and tertiary. So you can definitely move into other spaces, but the day-to-day ones, I'd say, are the primary. So one is awareness, two is identification, listing them out. And then the third part is starting to look at the overlaps. So it's like a puzzle of some sort. So if you say, okay, when am I the artist and the teacher? Or when am I the artist and designer? Or how does the designer researcher come together? And sort of just crossing and marrying and exploring, does that feel like your nature? Have you ever thought about who you are?
Yes.
Have you ever considered what you're doing in those moments or how it feels? I think the research I've done with people, they can most often identify the feeling state, that when they are losing track of time, when they're most at peace in work, when they feel they're most alive, they're truly in their intersections and they don't even realize it. And that's why having interviews and doing observations of people helps to unpack. That's your hybridity, that moment when you are crossing over and you didn't even realize it.
You said, and it was so powerful, I am more than my title.
Yeah.
That is like, a soul cry to me.
Right.
When I feel that, my whole body's like, yes, I am more than my title, because titles are so often, and this could be a very subconscious thing.
Sure.
They're handed to us.
They can be, or they can be created.
Or created.
Sure.
But the disruptor, that's a place I like to play with you, because
Yes.
as a creative, I love tearing things apart. And
Oh, we're the boundary pushers.
the boundary pushers.
Yeah.
I look at that and say, more than my title, how, on a soul level,
Yeah.
right? How much of this is because I think I need to be, or because I want this outcome of a certain experience, and so I'm going to call myself that. In other words, we use words and titles to help ourselves to get there.
Yeah.
And it might not be that raw essence, what I call an energetic signature
That's great.
of who being able to make that real proclamation this is who I am.
That's the best way of saying it, proclaiming who you really are and who you want to be in the world, how you want to show up and be seen.
And it's terrifying.
Oh, yeah. And it's hard to have that deep epiphany because are you scared of really announcing that to the world? Are you ready to do that?
Well, and because, right, any good, juicy, coming from the soul stuff is going to be scary.
Yeah.
Because it's vulnerable.
And I think there's a progression to this work too. So early in my career, I became the art teacher. I ascribed to how other people saw me because I saw myself through their eyes. And I was too fearful to recognize and stand up for, actually, I want to proclaim I'm this other kind of professional. So it was an evolution of work to let go of these outside perceptions, acknowledge them because they were legitimate. They saw my creative side, but they saw it in one kind of box. And I said, well, I have that creativity, but I actually am projecting it in this other kind of way that's more of an innovator, that's more of a disruptor, that's more of a, systems developer, which is not the art teacher. But finding that language and going through the chaos of where do I belong in my work has been a huge journey.
Yeah, it's very empowering because we step into our professional identities or our work role and everybody's projecting on us.
Yeah.
This is who you are. This is who you are because this is what you do for me. This is what you produce.
Right.
This is how you make my life easier.
Yeah.
For me, that was my story.
Sure.
But if I had this language, I'm thinking back in my own career journey before I had my own business and things really shifted because being your own boss and it is incredibly liberating and of course challenging for all of the reasons.
Right.
Total anarchy. Suddenly all of my, magic slashes, all of my roles are like taking over. But it's because it's easy in a career to just be defined by the title.
Of course.
It's safe.
And that's been the tradition. That's the convention that society has put us into for so many years, except we're in a shift right now, or we have been for some time, where the gig economy has been exploring.
Yeah, talk about
free
that.
agent nation. So, the gig economy represents about 55 million workers that are freelancers, that are working as independent contractors, that have side gigs, that are moonlighting, that have 1099s. And they are, creating their persona of how are they marketing and branding and making a living. That shift of the workforce going away from full-time jobs with traditional job titles to self-created roles and responsibilities allows people more autonomy, and then they get to define, okay, what are the titles I'm going to put together, this provocateur, magician, counselor or something. And you're like, I've never heard of that. What is that? Because that's their manifestation of who they want to be.
Why now? Why are people more comfortable with risk more than ever?
It's a great question. When I started getting into this work, I needed exemplars. I was like, who are the true role models of hybridity, nationally, internationally? Because it's the day-to-day workforce, but there's got to be the people way high on the stage. And people that came to mind were like Oprah and Bono and Taylor Swift and Beyonce and people that have so many titles behind their names, that they're the actor, the writer, the author, the philanthropist, the talk show host, the entrepreneur. Their bios are so extensive. That really, I think, has been game-changing in the last couple decades, probably since the 2000s, because the triple threat came out maybe around 2000 with the actress, singer, dancer, model.
Really? That just was like 2000?
I don't know. When was it?
I just
when
always think? I guess that makes sense because Disney really started pioneering that, right?
I think it was earlier with the Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire.
Right.
But
we didn't start using the vernacular.
Yeah, like the Britney Spears, where she's on the cover of magazines and in movies and writing her albums. Like, we hadn't seen that before. I don't think that's my recollection.
On the cultural level, yeah.
Right. And so that, I think, division of people rising up in a social context, suddenly having a lot of titles behind their name, and that becoming their brand, that their identity was more powerful than just the one thing they did. Now I think the rest of us can start to play and open up and say, well, I can do more things too. And it's become really acceptable and common practice that you have 2 or 3 business cards. Like, nobody just has one job anymore. They do a lot of things, but we don't always ask about it.
Yes.
So the question of what do you do is an old question we've got to move past. It's, What are your professional identities?
Okay, let's park on that for a second, because there's nothing that gets me more hot and bothered than that question.
Yeah.
What do you do? And I get a real attitude about it, and I'm okay with that now. Like I've allowed myself, like, it's okay. Because when I first started showing up and doing these networking things, and it'd be different every day.
It is different every day. I've gone through waves of, I don't even know how to answer this right now.
Yes. And I began to just get clear on that with people. I love being the person that shows up. Tell me what role you think this is, based on your research. But I love showing up in a room and just totally making them wonder, and I intentionally will avoid the conversation, because it's the first thing. I think that it establishes comfort and security.
Well, it's a way to quickly define, and I think sort of probably judge and
Why do we want to define
classify.
so quickly?
I wish I knew that. I mean, I think it's part human nature that by association of what your job and job title is, we can start to assign sort of social understandings of who you are, and for better or worse, decide if we want to continue talking to you or move on.
I see. So it's, and I understand the nature of this, but I'm with you that I think that it is time to evolve, to graduate from, or just be conscious of that.
Absolutely.
I remember a couple years back, I hadn't even gotten out of my car, and this person came up to me and asked me what I did, and it was at a networking thing, and I was like, people. And they're like, well, isn't this what we're here for?
Yeah.
We're here to network and to, so even the evolution of networking.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, people are still, if you're talking about energetics at this lower level of like, networking is to bring value to me and to make the best connections I can as quickly as I can. And your job title will quickly help me decipher, are you worth my time or not? Do I need to interact? So I still think that's the lower level
That's the economy of that, yes.
Yeah, it's the ego stuff. But when we're really in our hybrid space, you see people for multiple kinds of value and multiple interests and multiple ways of interacting. I think that's your beauty, is you look at the problem or the project you're being presented with and go, I can fit into this in multiple different ways because of my abilities. And I think more people want to do that and have that ability. But again, it's stepping over this consciousness threshold of that being allowed and presenting yourself in this way. But there's one caveat here where people start to move into being the jack of all trades. Like, okay, I can do everything. I'll be everything to everyone. And that's also not as healthy, because that's not true. So you've got to find the middle ground of, I can do a lot of things and I'm not just singular, but what are the handful of things I really want to attribute as being my best, my brightest, my highest potential?
Yes. This is why life coaches make, millions of dollars, the self-help industry and all of this, because there is, and I noticed this trend amidst this industry of, I'll call it the plight of scatteredness, the plight of self-discovery work is just being everywhere at once.
Totally.
And because I think that the win for that, or the what we get out of that is the sense of power, limitlessness. Who doesn't want to feel limitless? And especially when we're liberating ourselves and we get to this really juicy point of I am free, I am more than a title. So now let's just see and explore all of these things, because if Elon Musk can do it, if Richard Branson can do it, we have these role models who are these real badass people. But focusing on what our highest, and that's where purpose comes in.
Absolutely.
That's where every time I start this podcast, I say, I am here to romance the world to a higher love.
Yes.
And that's my proclamation. I say that every week because it's my North Star, right? It's that thing that when I forget, not if, because it's because of my hybridity, right? I'm a mom, I'm a wife. That's just my roles. But then you start talking about identities, like you, artist, creative, et cetera, all of these things. When we are here's my attempt at this word, multiplicitous.
Multiplicity.
So when I'm in my state of multiplicity, I can, when I go back to my purpose, that's when I'm feeling power again.
And that's your truth.
It's truth.
Yeah.
Yes. So the expression of my truth can be in all of these ways.
And your brightest and your highest. I mean, you know it when you feel it.
Yes.
Because you're there. But articulating that into a word or a few words, oh my gosh. I mean, it's a lot of trying to sort through possibilities, because you're like, well, I'm all of these things. I'm these 50 terms. I'm 100 identities. And that can be true, that you try them all on and you use nuggets. But what are those deep-seated, rooted ones, your power center, like you're talking about?
Yes. So I always love inner child work, as you know. And I want to know from you, at what point did you know, one,
Yeah.
that you are an artist?
Oh,
What was your journey
I love
to-
that you just took me there. Oh my gosh. Because as a little girl, I was so imaginative. I would take the cereal box and turn it into a miniature puppet theater and create a performance that I would like bring to my first grade teacher. And then she had me like put it on for the rest of the grade. I mean, I just was endlessly resourceful and seeing things in the world that my peers were like, oh yeah, they'll come along with me, but they wouldn't instigate it because my imagination was just so fluid. So the creator, I think, is absolutely at my root. I've tried to abandon and push it aside, and it's always with me. So now I'm starting to embrace it. Yeah, the little girl in me is the endless possibility, kind of magician and just fantastical whimsy. She's unhindered. Yeah. I know. I need
love
more of
that
her.
word. To be unhindered,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I have my own, memories, and I go back to them a lot because I think it works like that, right?
Yeah.
We can go back to different times and moments and and activate ourselves and bring that in.
Yeah.
But I think as an artist, here's what I wrestle with, because I would probably, like you, with my first title or first, what do you call them? The 4 or the 3?
I talk about them as your primary identities, professional identities in that vein.
Okay, so my primary identity would also be an artist.
I was going to ask you for years. Actually, we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, artist for sure. And I think when we went through it, I wrestled a bit with, because of my own identity work, how do I put all of this multi-dimensional, identities. And it's not even identities, because that has the energy of, to say identity, it means this. You like carve it down.
Well, and that's one of the findings in my research is words are arbitrary points of meaning.
Yeah.
When I asked people to articulate their professional identities, more often than not, they would just start describing a whole sort of summary of what they do, because we couldn't figure out the words for it. And that was fascinating. It's this idea of a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yes.
Words are very limiting.
Yes. Let me paint you a picture of who I am.
Yeah.
Or let me sound out notes for you, or make, vibration of sound.
The vibration. Because when you're in that state of bliss and your hybridity, you're actually creating energetic space. I hadn't thought of this till just now, but you're creating a space that others feel inspired and enriched and enlivened, but nobody could really put their finger on what's making that happen.
Yes.
But it's you merging these identities into this labelless thing that we're trying to label the hybridity now.
Yes.
It's a very special place.
It really is. I love that you said that, because to me, it's resonance. That's how I experience that word. And when I'm with somebody who is resonant with themselves, it is like this rapturous experience for me. And contrary, on the other side of that, when I'm with somebody who is packing themselves in, cramming themselves in because of fear and because of, resistance or whatever else, it is the opposite of that. And so for me right now, I'm really conscious about attracting the resonant ones.
So, and that was another piece I learned talking to people, is this idea of those that were enlightened, let's just use that, in how they are actually crossing over and connecting their identities, were more refreshed, were more resonant, were more fulfilled. And people that hadn't come across this concept or were struggling in their work, they had a tension and a friction between their identities, because one guy was a photographer prior to becoming a teacher, but he couldn't figure out how to get the photography in his teaching practice. And neither side was being filled, and he was sort of dejected and demoralized and just frustrated. And he hadn't yet learned where the merge is, how to marry those two.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is the merge. Let's talk about the merge. Because, so I'll share about my husband, because he's in this career, this intersection with his career right now. You know, he turned 40 a few years ago, and so he's in that life stage as well of, if I am more than my title.
You are more than your title.
Yes. But for him, asking this question, how? First of all, it's not safe because I have this structure of my life, this world that I've created based on this title.
Yeah.
And so if I were to move into the creator or move into the beauty maker, because he sings opera and he's starting to sing more, and I got him the Artist's Way workbook a couple of weeks ago, and so he's been doing his morning pages, and he is in this space right now of the merge, but he's kind of driving like an old man on the on-ramp.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I love you, Bradley. But he's kind of like, 35 and a 55, like how, and it's so exciting. Like he sees all the movement that he's about to, but there's that fear. How do we reconcile with that, the fear of merging?
Let's work on that together. I mean, it's different for everyone, and at different stages when you're merging different identities. Some just probably will snap together, and others you'll be on that for years trying to figure out what to do with them. I mean,
and that's okay.
Well, it's part of the process, I think. Yeah. But one is just recognizing, wow, I have these two really different parts of myself. Do they need to come together? And what would happen if they did? What try that on? And you might realize, okay, that was a bad fit, or, oh, I want to do more of this. But yeah, like, we all have to experiment. This isn't just like flip a switch and it's done.
Yeah, there's a degree of faith required.
I used a lot of paintings, and I used artists to help me sort of understand how to talk about this research, because I was struggling figuring out the themes. And so Renee Magritte does these really interesting surreal paintings where things will be juxtaposed. You'll have, like a lamppost that's turned on and it looks like it's nighttime, but the rest of the painting's daytime. And you're like, how is that possible? And so one of his paintings that spoke to me in this work is an image of a doorway, just the frame of a door, and the door is cracked open, and it's on the bank of a sand dune. And so through the doorway, you can get to the ocean, and then the other side is you're kind of in the grass sand dune. And I loved this because it was sort of this apparition of the doorway is there, but you have to find them. They're not automatically visible. And are you ready to step through it? And do you know how to open that door when you need that door? And for me, that's a metaphor for being between these identities of how do we find those entry points between them? Where are they? Are they accessible? Are you ready to move into one space or the other? And can you just leave the doorway open?
Right. Can you wedge it open? Can you just kind of, it doesn't automatically
So it's like that to me is just a beautiful way of thinking of these crossing over points.
We are unlimited beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are absolutely unlimited in our creating those opportunities as creators, and we're all creators. That doesn't have to just be a core identity.
Sure.
That needs to be in everybody's. That needs to just be implied.
Sure.
Because to even create hybrid identities, we have to really claim that. We have to own, I am a creator of this. Yeah. So I think, there was a couple of other things that I want to ask you moving from this, but first of all, before I get there, I want to make sure that everybody who's listening and watching knows that you are putting all of this into a book.
Right. So I'm on the path of writing my book about this, calling it More Than My Title. And
that's the name of the book.
Right.
Good. I love that title.
Well, it's so suiting because we are more than our title, and the book is more than its title. And it's just this anomaly of titles.
Yes.
And looking at who are hybrid professionals, what does it mean to be a hybrid, and how do you recruit or identify, attract, retain them? Because it is a body of the workforce that, I'm still struggling. If I move on to my next job, how do I tell future employers who I am, what I do, and how I do it? Yes. I think this is a constant way of us trying to figure out how to communicate to each other our gifts in the world and why we do it differently and in our own unique way that other people can't do. And that's why we should be the ones doing that work.
Until we have evolved as humanity enough where you can walk into a room and simply,
Feel it.
and then everybody goes, yes, you are exactly what we have been looking for. Thank you, Tiffany, you're hired.
I love that.
Until there's that degree of transparency, we need all of these other things, right?
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
Book is
Thank you.
happening.
Book is in process. It'll probably be a few years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about how we can learn more about that as well as we close, because I want to make sure people can connect and even be a part of that.
Great.
Because I think it's more than a title. It's more than a book. It's really a movement.
True. Yes.
Within the job force, within human resources, and getting this conversation into more workspaces.
Workforce development. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the energetics of genius, and genius being, this multiplicity of professional identities.
Yeah.
What about weirdness?
Okay.
Weirdness, genius, like I see these words, individuality. How important is it? What does weird mean to you as a researcher in your world?
Wow. I haven't studied it as a scholar, so I can't really speak from that point. But the word you used a moment ago about individuality, I mean, that's the era we're in right now. Even Vogue magazine has said there's no style or trends anymore. Like, style is your individuality. And I was like, well, that's true about our profession. It's true about how we live our lives. Yeah. And I work a lot with students, and we're looking at Gen Z, and they are all about not putting themselves in boxes. They don't want to check if they're right or left, if they're bi, straight, gay, whatever. They just want to be whatever they want to be.
They want to walk into the room and do this.
Right. So yeah, your genius, your weirdness. I mean, it's owning those things that you just believe are you. And so, I mean, I think this ability to create titles that have never existed before and roles that have never existed before, like my job didn't exist even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to create for yourself and owning that, like that's your weirdness, that's your pizzazz, that's your gift, whatever you want to say.
So I love you. This isn't your first gig that you just pioneered. I feel like you've
of,
always created you're in
I've
these.
been in a lot of roles that were
Wild
the
West.
first, and they were new and the only time that position had been created at that point. So I've had a really unique journey in that way.
That would be interesting to read about in your book too. How I call them magic slashes now. It's the artist / researcher / designer / what about human-centered design? I love that word.
I wish I could take credit. That's a whole movement into itself. It's the idea that the world today is facing really big problems, and they're really based in human experiences. So we don't need to just be solving problems of like how to make this lawnmower better, but it's really like, well, why do humans even need to mow the lawn? Like, why are you, Tiffany, struggling with using the lawnmower? Like, let's talk about you and your own personal pain points and needs and desires. So through anthropology, through ethnography, by understanding people, we can change the world and solve problems that really matter.
I'm thinking about the type A's of the world. That would be like totally struggling and impatient with that. Like, why do I have to talk about the why? Like, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
And even that is shifting. So these where did type A come from? What is the A?
That's a great question. Let's go find out.
Somebody needs to tell us here. Where did type A? That feels like a very like early 80s.
And what is type B? Because I never hear type B.
Right. I've always called myself type B just as the alternate to type A, because type B to me, because I feel like it's the one that is on the side, like will allow more, where the type A is like, I can be type A because I'm a hybrid. Okay, I can go there when my house needs to be cleaned or whatever. But I do think, I'm thinking about Melanie Griffith in Working Girl.
Oh.
It is Griffith, right? It's not Griffin.
Well, I haven't seen that movie
hacking
in a while.
the name? Oh, I'm so sorry. I should know these things. I'm a child of the 80s. By the way, this T-shirt.
It's pretty fabulous.
You turned me on to this.
So I found like a Facebook post with an ad for a really amazing nostalgic T-shirt of, what is it, Starbright?
Yeah.
And Gem.
Rainbow Bright.
Thank you.
Gem and Shira.
I mean, classic characters that just embrace divine femininity and power and follow your hybridity.
Yes, all three of these. That's what I was saying. Like I used to be Rainbow Bright.
Yeah.
That would be my thing, a rainbow
Yeah.
all the way. And now I can feel, the magic
Oh
of
my
Gem,
gosh.
the glamour, and then the power of She-Ra.
Yeah.
But this was a movement in the 80s.
Well, and doesn't she have an alter personality? Like she's
like
She-Ra
He-Man.
sometimes, and she's like normal girl sometimes, and
Yes.
then warrior other times, and Gem was normal girl,
Also.
and then also the rocker. So they show that we have to shift these personas
Yeah.
and be who's the person really in between.
Today I'm Gem.
You're the Gem.
Those of you listening have to watch the video to see the shirts that we're talking about, and I'll actually put in the notes where to get these, because when I wear this out in public, people are like, oh, people who are my age or
love
whatever.
that.
No, I actually
good.
was teaching my Shakespeare kids.
Yeah.
I teach Shakespeare once a week, and these are like 3rd through 6th graders.
Yeah.
So I wore this one day
Okay.
to rehearsal, and none of them knew.
Such
course.
a shame.
None of them. I mean,
they
these
need-
kids were born in like 2009
Gem
or
was
something.
a movie like a couple years ago. I don't think it did well though.
Oh God, no,
I know, it was sad.
no.
know.
Anything that comes back is usually,
I know.
not happening.
Not worth it.
But these days, I feel like I'm really
Yeah.
doing when I'm on my podcast, I'm channeling Gem.
She's a good one.
She's
She's vibrant.
I need to
Yeah.
do a star.
Oh my
here.
gosh. Yes. Flashing
That
earrings
this
and a
is
star.
Yeah, I need to get.
Star paint on her eye, yeah.
Why did she do that? That was like
That was
her
her
mark.
look, yeah.
But
She
not a
was like
trend.
ahead of the Katy Perry's. I mean, the pink hair is like so in vogue right now.
Yeah, but for because somebody decided to do that with their genius, with their weirdness. They were
So
like,
amazing. Please bring that back, somebody.
so I think what I want to do right now is play a game with you,
Let's do it. It's game time.
because I can feel myself going through. I see in my hybrid, I can see like 10 different things. But I think the way to start landing the conversation is to play a little bit. And I want to do that by word association.
Okay, let's do it.
Did you see them?
I saw
glanced?
one, and then I was like, I shouldn't be looking at this. So I turned away. So no, I really don't know what's coming.
Okay, good. Because it's no fun if there's like something in the brain that happens when you
It
can
does.
be like,
and I have one of those brains that would be marinating on this for
Yeah.
the last hour.
okay, word association I'll just do a handful of these. We'll see where they go. Okay, ready?
Ready.
And style muse.
My style muse. It's always a combination. I love Claire Underwood. She's just got that severe sophistication and classiness. I think there's something about Wonder Woman and sort of that like leather and like I am gonna take down the world. I channeled that for Halloween, so I think there's an element of fierceness I'm still carrying.
Are we talking about Linda Carter, like vintage
Oh, sorry,
Wonder?
the brand new Wonder
Okay,
Woman.
yes, of course.
Just those costume design was phenomenal, and the fact she had to like go through London, and then she like still got in that fight, and she's like wearing all the like funny cloaks. And
Again,
I
it's the gem. It's
it
the
was great.
hybrid. It's
yeah, so good. So those are my top two for right now.
Okay. Tell me, Claire Underwood, is she the one from House
of
of Cards?
Cards.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Because I was going to
impeccable.
Claire Danes, and then I went to Carrie
Sorry,
Underwood,
sorry.
and I was like, those don't. Now I get it.
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
she's vicious. That's like alter ego, right?
Oh yeah. Well, personality, but you were asking style.
Okay, style. Sorry. Yes.
It's okay.
Exclusively style. Yes.
Yeah.
Color.
I'm into amethyst right now. Yeah, purples.
Why?
Oh,
What do they do for you?
there's just this subtle twinkly beauty. I just am feeling drawn to it. Everything from purple in my wardrobe to purple crystals. I don't know. I wouldn't even say I'm like wearing it. It's just the color that's speaking to me right now.
Yeah. Isn't it funny
Yeah.
how, well, you're an artist. It's not funny. It's like every day, right? But colors do.
Yeah.
They create visceral.
They evoke.
Yes,
Yeah.
evoke. I love that. Inner child.
My first word that comes up with
Yeah.
that. I mean, castle comes to mind. I don't know why. And swing set, just there's playfulness and imagination in terms of like just going where you can't imagine like things that don't exist in your ordinary life. Yeah.
I'm do a writing prompt on that after this.
I should. Now you've got my head spinning.
Take me to my castle. Yeah. Entrepreneurship.
Intense is my first word there. Complicated. I've learned so much about it because it's part of my day job, and I mix and mingle with so many different kinds of entrepreneurs, emerging students that want to start a company to adults that are leaving their career and starting companies to people that are serial entrepreneurs. And they are wonderful people. And it's been really interesting to see all of their different ways of what it means to them. And so the intensity that they have behind it, I think, is my best term for that right now.
I think as a prescription for them, embracing their hybrid identities. I mean, talk about a whole class, a marketplace, what that would do for the mental health.
Well, they all are. I mean, there is not a single entrepreneur I've met that doesn't wear a million hats, because they have to be the fundraiser, the marketer, the product developer, the website guru. I mean, everything's weighing on them when they're a team of one or a team of two.
Yes.
So they are hybrids without knowing it, but they also need to be careful with which skills and which identities are they really best suited for. And that's the trap they run into. They do too many things without starting to delegate and hire the right talent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Purpose.
Oh, questionable. I'm in a soul
We
searching
talked about
mode.
this in brunch, right?
Yeah.
Putting this into words.
I mean, I was on the way up here thinking about all the women in my life, just for whatever, women in particular, and all of my girlfriends really seem to be going through a life transition around career. I don't know anyone that's really figured it out. They're like changing jobs, or they're changing cities, or they're redoing resumes and websites. And I mean, I think that really speaks, one, to the era that people don't stay in the same role for more than a few years anymore. I mean, the average is like 2.5, 3 years. It's so fast compared to 20, 30 years in a company historically. So I think we are moving into an age where people want to work where mission matters and they want to have impact. And companies and opportunities that have that are what more people are attracted to, but they still need to make money. So I'm just questioning, what can I do the best in this world? Where can I have the most impact? I love inspiring people, and I love doing great work. And as long as I can keep being challenged, I will drive as hard as I can to get big work done.
Yeah, and staying in the play of it, staying in the space of discovery with it, putting the paint on the canvas.
Right.
You know, as much as you will share with me the challenges and the tension of the work that you do, I see you as finger painting. There's still a real curiosity that leads you and drives you in this. So I'm going to mirror that.
More finger painting
for you, right?
That'll be my purpose right now. Because I need to stay messier. I think I'm uncomfortable when there is so much chaos. Yes. But the messiness allows things to birth.
Absolutely.
That's important.
Yeah, let's just call out the illusion that we ever have this figured out.
No.
Okay.
I mean, the Michelangelo sculptures of David, that he said, the sculpture was always there. I just took away the stone that was covering it. But to get to that level of quality, I'm like, that's a lot of work. I don't know.
Well, there's this really beautiful opening as well for me, and as I create one thing, and then I create another thing, and then I create another thing. And it's like everything that I create, it's coming from, because of the work that I do and in the alignment and giving my soul a voice, it comes from that innermost place. And so it feels really good just to birth it.
Oh, totally.
Just to bring it out.
I'm so fulfilled when things come out of my mind into reality. That is what I live for.
Yes.
And then I'm ready to move on.
Yes. And let's not even say that it has to do anything.
Yeah.
Because that's when I talk about faith. I think there's faith that if I can make this as pure and as beautiful for myself as possible, it will inevitably affect people, the world, humanity, the collective, whatever. And I think that having more faith in that, I love that you give permission for people to move into the fluidity of that, because that's pretty fluid.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, if we could all get more comfortable in the abstract and in the unknown, like this doesn't have to do anything. I could just speak it.
And that's controversial, because I think certain spaces and certain kinds of work will always say, why are you doing this? And what's the ROI? And
Yes.
what is the impact? And what are the outcomes and the deliverables? So having the space and the gift to just play and discover and explore is more precious and not given enough compared to how we're forced to turn it into something.
And that's part of that intersectionality that I can, and I'm really owning this for myself because I come from that world too of return on investments and what is the deliverable here and what's the tangible result. So my intersection there is there's always enough space for it to be something different than what we think.
Yeah.
So that when we arrive to completion,
Totally. Yeah.
that needs to, it's still fluid. So that's interesting. I just see that as a part of that intersectionality.
No, I'm going to hold on to that idea too, because I mean, we rush through things. We want to like, okay, here's idea. Great. Go push it out.
Yeah.
But instead of pausing and letting things just sort of evolve and grow a little bit and not be as well defined.
Yes.
Before we say, oh, you know what? Now we're seeing it take shape. Now let's pick a direction to go.
Because what you said in the beginning, that the experience of hybridity is aliveness.
Yeah.
You're really going into that. If I'm all of these things, these are my top things, and I'm able to move in between from place to place to place, that's how I can be. And I love talking about engaging in our aliveness. I think that's where we are effective in the world. So, okay, so one last word. Let's see.
I keep closing my eyes.
I know. Let's say beauty.
Just raw. That was the first word that came to mind. I think beauty is everywhere, and it's in the most unexpected places. We just don't have our eyes open all the time. Appreciating things as they are, and just the naturalness and the unplanned, and witnessing and taking that in. I think beauty is just the raw.
As I am. As I am. That's raw to me.
Exactly.
I have a raw amethyst I'm going to give you on that note. Before you leave, make sure.
How perfect is that?
So if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't doing this research or this job,
if you weren't Sarabeth in your in the way you're expressing your hybridity right now, you could totally go fantasy with that, or it might be something more.
I mean, I think in my heart, I am more of an entrepreneur than I allow myself to be. I have had a fantasy of opening some kind of retail brick and mortar enterprise, sort of akin to like if Anthropology and Build-A-Bear and those like sip and painting stores were to like have a baby. This would be an experience, because I think the way the world works, we're more social in how we want to be. We don't want to just like go shopping, and people want to get together and do things. So if you could have a place to go and buy the ingredients to make the really cool bohemian chic, like DIY stuff that Anthropology looks like it sells, but they charge $100 for that.
Right.
And you can make that with your friends. It's just like you can go on a website and get a tutorial, but why are you buying all those things? Like you just need 4 buttons and 3 beads. You don't need a gallon of paint.
Yes.
So go to a store where you can buy the objects and follow the tutorial to make the thing that expresses yourself and you can wear and enjoy and use, and do it with people that also are creatives or inspired to follow. That to me, I think, is a place I've always sort of held as like, if I'm going to run off and I had $1 million, I would open this business.
It's a hybrid retail.
It is a hybrid retail. It really brings in my art education background, my project management, my organizational development, so many facets of who I am, but it would be me leading the charge for a change. So
interesting.
If and when and how someday it might come into being.
Have you thought of the name?
I played with Fashion Lab, but that's not fully there yet. That was just the placeholder name.
Yeah. That lab, this place of everything that you said about having permission to be messy and creating something from nothing. It's this place. I am a firm believer in when we throw things out there.
Right.
And we get charged from it, and it produces a excitement in our
Electricity.
bodies, electricity. Yep, that's how we activate the magnetic energy of it. And to get all quantum physics on it,
Okay.
there is a timeline reserved for that.
Okay.
And another time, and another. What was the show Quantum Leap with
Yeah.
Scott Bakula, where he used to just like go into these other realities?
80s today.
Yeah, I know it's 80s. It's the shirt. I can't help it.
Yeah, it's good.
I went working girl in Quantum Leap. I was
So
definitely
good.
in GE. We
I
were
know,
doing GE.
I know. Got all these.
At least I'm consistent.
We know
Next-
what era you're from.
Next episode, we'll do some 90s ones. But I don't think I watched as much TV in the 90s as I did in the 80s.
Well, hopefully I'm planting these seeds in the universe, and maybe it'll come through this life or another life.
Of course.
But yeah.
Okay, so tell us, as we close here, how can people get in touch with you, and what do you want them to do? How do you want them to enter into the book or your work that you're creating?
A few different ways that people could connect with me. So one is I love hearing stories of how people are living their professional identities, or what hybridity means to them or looks to them. So if you would love to share that with me, go to morethanmytitle.com.
Okay.
You can learn more about me. You can learn about the book in progress. I'm starting to blog and start
The movement.
giving some information on what I've been researching, and contact me through that. And I'd love to either have a phone chat or meet with you and learn about your stories.
Yeah, because you're really going to be presenting this more in workshop
Yeah.
forms and bringing people in the career space into the conversation. I love that.
Yeah, I'm trying to build more understanding and develop what different channels can I activate in your language,
Yes.
to reach different people, both through LinkedIn, through handouts, through references, and eventually publishing a book, because I really do think there's a message that a lot of
is
people need to
coming.
hear.
In addition to the Fashion Lab, or whatever that name will be. I love that.
The book proceeds will build that. There you go.
Thank you so
Oh my
much for sharing your
gosh,
light here.
What a fun
I had
little
so much fun with
time
you
to
today.
sit and have this conversation.
My favorite thing in the world, to have friends over on my couch and then to highlight their work with everybody listening. So thank you.
What a gift. Thank you for bringing me here.
And if you are listening, watching, please join the conversation. Help us to bring more of this magic into the everyday. You can do that by going to magiccarpetlife.com, reading, commenting. Tell us what inspired you from this conversation. Maybe you're in a career right now, or maybe you're in your own business and this idea of hybridity is like really getting you thinking. What are you thinking about, and how do you want to move that into your life in a real, tangible way? You can go online and join the conversation there, or comment below. There is a higher love at play, and it is always working for us. Our only job is to be conduits for this love, to keep the channel clear, be unique about it, and stay in joyful anticipation. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week on Magic Carpet Life.